Hello everyone, welcome to Level Change channel. My name is Claudio Fonseca. I'm a real Boeing pilot and today I'm going to talk about the VNAV from above. So today we are going to shoot an RNAV approach, and for some reason we are going to be high when we intercept the final approach course to the runway. The reason for being high can be an ATC restriction or you mismanage your descent, and I'm going to show you how to recover from this. It is slightly different from my previous video where I show you how to recover from an ILS interception from above when you intercept the glide slope from above. Okay, another thing that I want to make very clear is that this VNAV from above only works on the 737, or the way that I'm going to explain to you only works on the 737, and I will talk to you about some 737 softwares that we have around the world. For the 777, for the 78, for the 74, and even for the 76 or 757, you have a slightly different procedure, so you do not use this procedure. I will give you a brief description on the 777 procedure at the end of this video, and once I have the 737, the PMDG 777 to the Microsoft Flight Simulator, I will fly this type of approach on the 777, the airplane that I'm currently flying in real world, to explain you the differences and how to intercept the VNAV from above on that type of airplane. Okay, so make sure you do not apply the procedures that I'm explaining for you today in a different type than the 737. Okay, so let's jump into our sim. We are here in the cockpit on the 737-800. I'm going to show you the procedure that we are going to shoot today. This is the RNP X-ray runway 10 right. It has a minimums for LNAV and VNAV of 2891 feet, and basically we were cleared by ATC to fly direct to position Lutpo, which is the intermediate fix for runway 10 right. In this case, Lutpo minimum altitude 4,500, observe 4,100, then a 3-degree glide slope, or in this case a 3-degree glide path towards the runway to cross the runway at a height of 50 feet. For this approach, ATC asks us to maintain 5,500 and to intercept the final approach course, which means we are going to be 1,000 feet above the minimum altitude at Lutpo. It's not 1,000 feet above the ideal glide path, but it is higher than the standard one, and I'm going to show you that one as we go through the procedure. So right now we have here on the FMC the same points, the same altitudes, and we are already in an active economic descent. As you can see, we have a speed of 164, which is basic our flaps 5 speed. So right now we are approaching Lutpo with flaps 5 extended at flap 5 speed and an altitude of 5,500, and we are going to maintain this 5,500 until we cross Lutpo, and then we are going to start our descent. Okay, right now at this present position we are 280 feet high on the approach, but as we go towards Lutpo, you will see that the descent profile will start to descend. Okay, so our vertical profile actually will start to descend, and we will eventually cross Lutpo above the profile. So on the 737 there are a couple of softwares around the world. Okay, first thing that I want you to notice is that once you have VNAV out, it means that the VNAV mode is active, but it reaches the altitude selected on the autopilot. So if we go to the autopilot here, I want to show you that VNAV is active and we reach the altitude here, 5,500. That's the meaning of VNAV out here. For some 737, when this happens, the VNAV disengage and altitude hold reverts. So in this case, for some 737, you have the VNAV out for a while the airplane levels off at the altitude selected, and then is going to change to altitude hold. So VNAV will disengage and altitude hold will be here. So for this kind of approach, for this kind of procedure, when you have the altitude hold instead of VNAV out, you can do pretty much like the previous video on the glide slope from above, meaning that you can pre-select a lower altitude. In this case, the next altitude that you are going to fly, the minimum altitude that you are going to fly on the segment that you are cleared, and you can use vertical speed as well to go down, okay? And once you are close to the path, you can re-engage VNAV. The other option would be to select this lower altitude, and as you want to start the descent, instead of using VS, you can also re-engage VNAV, which is pretty much what is going to happen today, because today the VNAV will be kept engaged, because the autopilot on this type of 737 does not the reversion mode to the altitude hold, okay? The difference is that because VNAV was never disengaged, we cannot change this altitude until we are cleared and ready to go down. So if I select now something like 4,500, which is the next altitude, the airplane or the VNAV will understand that we want to go down and is going to follow VNAV path or VNAV speed depending on your altitude difference to the profile, so it's going to start to going down. So for today, we need to maintain 5,500 until we are inbound on the final approach course, and then we are going to select the next altitudes, okay? By the time we are on the final, we'll be over Lutpu, so Lutpu altitude, it doesn't apply anymore. The next altitude for us today will be 4,100. As we approach 4,100, we need to select 3,300 as the constraint that we have at Golf Romeo 213, and then our minimus of 2891 or 2,900 feet or 2,800 feet, okay? We cannot select the 2891 exactly, so we need to select 2,900 or 2,800. It depends also on the company standard for this. Boeing usually says that you select everything above when it's related to your minimus, and everything below when is related to your altitude constraint, okay? It can be a little bit tricky. I prefer to always set something above, so if I see 2891, I will set 2,900, because I'm not going to fly all the way down to 2,900 with this selected on the autopilot anyway. I'm going to revert to the missed approach altitude at some point, okay? So basically for this approach, what I have to do is I have to wait until I'm ready to start the descent, make sure I have the VNAV, select a lower altitude, or select a lower altitude and revert back to VNAV if that is the case. Have in mind that once you are on VNAV and more than 150 feet above your profile, the airplane will not engage in VNAV path. It will engage in VNAV speed, which means the throttles will reduce towards idle and will start the descent at the FMC speed until you reach the path, and then it's going to revert to VNAV path, and it's going to add thrust to maintain the path, okay? So if you have high descent to comply with, for example, the difference between your current altitude and the altitude that you want to achieve is high, there is a high probability that you will be doing an idle descent, and this can be a very steep descent. So use the VNAV, in this case the VNAV speed, with caution. And also remember, anytime you have VNAV speed and the airplane reduce the thrust to idle and it's flying towards the ground faster than you want, I mean your rate of descent is bigger than the one that you want, you can always add some thrust manually. So you can go to your thrust levers, you can go there and add your thrust manually to arrest this rate of descent. Maybe I'm going to show you this on this kind of approach, but it's not a big deal. Just take your thrust levers forward, and of course, if you add more thrust, as you add more thrust, the rate of descent will decrease. Okay, so have in mind that when you have your VNAV speed and thrust in idle from the FMC, you can always override and add a little bit of thrust if you want to arrest your rate of descent. Okay, another thing that I want to show you, and I'm going to show you on this first attempt, okay, is that once you have VNAV path or speed or out, you are in a descent mode. Okay, so you know that you are in the descent mode when your descent mode is active. Okay, so you can see here active. It doesn't matter if it's economy, speed or whatever, descent. So your descent is active. Once you select flaps with the speed window closed, okay, this means that the airplane will slow down to the next maneuver speed for that flap, which means if you are extending your flaps while you are deploying, while you are descending on the final approach. Okay, so let me say that again. If you are extending your flaps while you are descending on the approach, trying to capture the glide path, the speed will be always reducing and the rate of descent is going to be reduced as well. So as on the glide slope interception from above, ideally you should be fully configured before starting the descent, trying to recover from this high altitude. Other things that you can do is you can always use speed intervention. Okay, so with speed intervention you can select the speed that you want to fly, so you have a good control on your speed. Just remember, if you keep a higher speed with a higher flap setting, your descent will be your rate of descent will be even higher, so use it with caution. Okay, on the glide slope from above, the recommended technique was to use vertical speed. On this procedure, this is not recommended because it's easier for you not to go below any constraint with the use of the VNAV. Okay, because in this case you do not have your glide slope to protect you going below the glide slope, so you will need your VNAV to protect you going below from the minimum altitudes on these procedures. So the control of the airspeed will actually control your rate of descent. Okay, so first I'm going to do a not very precise maneuver to comply with this restriction. Okay, because I want to show you that with the VNAV speed window closed, when you try to catch the path and also extend your flaps, you will see that your rate of descent is going to decrease and maybe you can not finish this glide path capture from above on a VNAV procedure. Okay, so I'm going to release the airplane for now. Enough talking, let's go to the action. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to pre-select the final approach course already, which is 095. Airplane is in LNAV, so it's going to intercept the final really soon. Okay, let me do like this. So here you can see the altitude and you can also see the flap indication. Okay, so right now we are already above the profile for the VNAV. Now we are more than 150 feet. If we change the altitude, it's going to revert to VNAV speed, not VNAV path. Okay, so we know we are already high, and we are going to have VNAV speed for this descent once we select a lower altitude. Okay, remember VNAV is still engaged, so if you select a lower altitude, the airplane will start the descent. Okay, so in this case today we are turning towards the final now. Let's wait for the airplane to intercept the final. Okay, just intercepted now, cross Lutpu. Okay, intercepted the final. We are aligned with the runway. Now we can start the descent by our ATC instructions. So we set 4,200. You see the airplane just reduced thrust to idle, and VNAV speed is there trying to catch your profile. Okay, so you are going to see an increase on your rate of descent here as the airplane reaches the altitude for flaps 5. Okay, as you can see, this is happening now. So you select gear down, that is supposed to increase your rate of descent, and it's doing it right now. But then you select flaps 15. Once you select flaps 15, please note that the airspeed will reduce automatically to flaps 15 speed, and then your rate of descent is going to decrease, and you are going to be even more away from the altitude that you want. Now we were supposed to be at 3,300 or descending towards 3,300 now. Okay, and once again I'm going to configure the airplane with flaps 30 now for this approach. Now you can see that as the flaps goes down, the airspeed reduces and the rate of descent reduces again. So we were almost at the path, but again we start to become high on the approach. Now as you can see, we are still 500 feet high. Okay, it's still doable, but we are descending 1,600, which is okay for this approach, and this is today enough. But as we are descending a lot, I'm going to set the minimus, and I'm going to add some thrust because we are descending too much. As you can see, we are now approaching 1,000 feet, and we are still not on the VNAV path that is supposed to be our correct mode for this descent. So we cross 1,000 feet and we are not stable. We are just stable now, so we could not continue this approach because at 1,000 feet we were not stable on the minimus or on the correct mode for this approach. Okay, so what we'll have to do now is to select 6,000 and go around. But in this case, I'm going to do another approach. I'm going to put us at the same place, at the same altitude. Okay, so I'm going to move the airplane again, and we are going to see this approach in a more precise way. So this time, what I'm going to do differently, I'm going to start configure the airplane early. Okay, I'm not going to wait to do the standard configuration to intercept the final approach course with flaps 5 and then select the gear down with flaps 15, and then later on close to the final approach fix or even below selecting the landing flaps. Okay, so as I know I'm going to be high, I'm going to extend all my flaps. I'm going to reduce my speed to my approach speed, and you will see that we are going to intercept that profile much before than the 900 feet that it happened before, leading us to a missed approach in that case. Okay, so just a few configurations that I have to do here on my approach. So I have to select the correct approach that I want, which in this case is the RNAV X-ray runway 10. I'm going to fly direct to Lutpo position, and I'm going to select a cruise altitude of 6,000 feet. Okay, so I'm going to select legs page here, and also on the MCP, as we started before, LNAV is already engaged towards Lupto, and we were cleared by ATC to descend to 5,000. I'm going to set 5,000. Okay, and I'm going to set VNAV, and I'm also going to release the airplane right now. Okay, so we are on the same approach, but today in this case, as we level off at 5,500 feet, and I know I'm going to be high on the approach, I already select the gear down, which is right now, and flaps 15. Now, leveled off at 5,500, the airplane is already reducing to the flaps 15 speed, okay? And as of now, I can already extend flaps to 30. So as I extend flaps to 30 and the airplane reduces to the VNAV plus 5, so our approach speed, while we are still at 5,000 feet, my rate of descent will be maximized once I start the descent on the final approach. Okay, so and you will see that it's going to be much faster to intercept the glide path, in this case on VNAV from above. Okay, so we are fully configured. We can even complete our landing checklist and everything. The airplane is turning to the final now. I even have time to check a couple of things. Okay, so let's do like we did before. We make sure that we are on final, and now we can start our descent. So 4,100 is the initial constraint that we have. So we have retard and VNAV speed. So the airplane is going to reduce towards idle. If I think I'm descending too much, again, I can always add a little bit of thrust to arrest this rate of descent. Okay? So as you can see, now the airplane will be even able to catch the profile close by Opser, which is the final approach fix. Okay? As we are approaching Opser, maybe it's just not enough, but I will select 3,300, which is the next altitude restriction, and you can already see based on this that we are reaching 3,300 before the constraint there. So at 150 feet, you will see just happen now 150 feet that now we are on FMCA speed and VNAV path, and this is the mode that we want. So the airplane adds thrust, keeps the approach speed, and we are going to descend now on VNAV. Okay, as we are descending on the VNAV, and now we can assure that we are going to cross 3,301 feet above the restriction. We can always set the minimus of 2,900, and we complete this approach. Now we are going to cross 1,000 feet already stable. Okay, so this was way different from the previous approach where we were only stable below 1,000, and that make our approach invalid. So the missed approach for today is 6,000. Okay, so I can select 6,000 on the missed approach altitude, and the airplane continues going down towards our runway. Okay, so guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you now understand the threats of intercepting the VNAV from above. Okay, so you have a couple of options. I will just freeze the position for my sim right now, so I can keep talking to you. Okay, so once again, if the airplane gets out of VNAV, you have the option to select your altitude first and then re-engage VNAV once you are starting your descent. Okay, if VNAV mode stays there, you have to wait until you are in the position that you want to start your descent to reset your MCP, to reset your autopilot altitude. Okay, another thing, remember, as you extend flaps with the speed window closed in VNAV, the airplane is going to reduce to the flap maneuver speed for the next flap position or the current one that you just selected, so the rate of descent will be decreased during that time. Okay, on other hand, if you are descending in VNAV speed, most probably your thrust will be idle, and if you feel you are descending too much, you don't need to descend that much. You can always add thrust manually. Okay, so now just to finish this video, I want to tell you what is the big difference from the 73 to the 777 that I currently fly. Okay, the main thing is that on the 777 there are no software that will revert from VNAV out to altitude hold. Okay, it doesn't happen on the 777 at all. We have only one software, and it always maintain VNAV out. Okay, so you may think you can do the procedure just like you did on the 737. The thing is, on the 777, if you have VNAV out, the VNAV will not command any climb or descent to the new MCP altitude unless you press altitude intervention. Okay, so on the 777, once you have VNAV out, you can even select a lower altitude, wait until the point you want to start the descent, and press the altitude button again, which is the altitude intervention on the 777, and then the airplane will command the descent. Okay, so remember, on the 73, if the VNAV is still there, anytime you command a lower altitude in the descent, if the path is below you, the programmed path is below you, the airplane will descend. Okay, and on the 777, once you get the VNAV out, the airplane does not descend unless you give it a new command for it to descend, and you don't have to disengage VNAV and go back to VNAV. You just use altitude intervention and it works as well. Okay, so thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you like it, please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your friends, and I see you next time. Bye bye.